All right, it may not look like I've got a lot done, but there's a lot done. I got a lot more to do, so I'll kind of get you caught up to where I am so far. This whole cage has been widened. This was the front of the cage. If you look right here on the front, how much wider this fuselage is on each side right there. Also, I've got to change the airframe itself. The back of this airframe needs to be reinforced. I'm putting the weight on the front, which the airplane can handle the weight, especially the way I'm redesigning the front. However, I'm moving my gear forward so I can really hit the brakes, and I'm putting some really radical gear on it. And I want to be able to stomp the brakes hard and not rock the plane up. So that action is going to put more load in the center of the plane. If the gear's further forward, tail wheel's at the back, this load through here increases if I hit hard and wants to move this direction. So I've actually got to beef up the frame. So I'm going to add a new subframe underneath that carries all the way down. It'll box out. What's great about it is I'm going to make it a permanent belly pod that's got more volume than any belly pod. And I'll fabric it in. I think I can do it, the entire subframe add-on, for about 27 pounds. I've laid out all the bars, how I'm going to do it, and added up the weight, and then added up some weld. What's great about that is most of the belly pods you find online weigh anywhere from 65 to 90 pounds. When I get all the structure built inside it for the belly pod, I might add another 7 pounds on top of that for the aluminum pan that's going to go inside. But at the end of the day, I'll have a belly pod that weighs less than a traditional bolt-on belly pod. It will be permanent, and it will be the added structure I need for the back of the aircraft. So, I just cut the top of my cage out. Which is super cool. So what I've got going on now is I'm changing my angle of incident, and I don't want to just move the front up without cutting the back, or I would actually have this twist and have a little bind on this bolt. Even though I'm only moving this up a tiny bit, I just took the whole thing off so that I could relocate it, reposition it, and weld it back up. So back to work. This is a lot of weight. It's a great part because it's casted, so they can make them really fast, really cheap, burn it out in mass production. But if you spend a little more time machining, you can knock some weight out of it. So I'm gonna go through and open it up, cut some holes in it, pull out some weight. This is way on the front of my plane, and that's the most critical area. I'm trying to get everything back, so that's important. If you don't have your own machine, there are some guys online. You can just buy one that someone's already done for you, even one out of titanium. I'm just gonna go ahead and machine mine up. I called them up, it was gonna be about a month to get it, and I can cut this out and have it ready in a couple hours. So I'm gonna cut out my own, but if you ever wanna lighten up an area, Flywheel is a good place to start. Back to work. That's fun. Just burn the hole in my sock. I try and keep all my protective gear on and Levi's, but it opened up just wide enough to drop a big burning BB right there. That's gonna be a 3rd degree burn. Last one of 4. So what we've got is I got a beam I put in on top of my new hangar, my build center, and it can hold over 40,000 pounds. Of course, I'm not gonna lift that. I've now got these plates made for some cranes, lift systems that can lift airplanes. So, sidetracked of the build for a second, but I need this to hold the planes up and do all the work we're doing, so kind of cool. That is a chunk of metal. Let's get back to work. All right, we're getting close. We got 2 sets of bearings on here. I've got this left loose, so we can get it up, put it on the beam, clamp it tight. This thing weighs a couple 100 pounds now. It's ridiculous, but I'll get it on the lift, we'll get it installed. I got 4 of them to put up, then we can get back to building airplanes.
Hey Mike, what you doing?
these cranes we're trying to put up weigh so much, we couldn't do it. So I got to build a jig to hold the crane, to lift it up, because we couldn't hold it over our heads. Just not that young anymore.
We'll get back to work.
Back to work. All right, guys, I'm getting a lot closer. It's a big job, but it is a lot of fun. I got burns, new burns showing up from me being silly and setting my arm down on a nice fresh hot weld, but that's all right. So I've now got the new bottom reinforcement frame in, carries all the way back, V's to the tail. I've got storage under here. It's gonna be a giant belly pod. Still have more to do. I'm gonna do a little more to stop the back of the frame from twisting. It's not really a problem, but I'm adding so much horsepower to it, I just wanna stiffen up that tail a little bit more. Back here, I ended my reinforcement at this point, and so here I really do need a lot more. So I'm gonna web this out with a few more braces, but at this point I'm attaching a very long travel tail wheel assembly. So I'm putting in a great big monster shock, and I'm gonna make sure that this thing can really handle a lot of weight on the tail, because I'm spreading the wheels far apart for stability and for all the other reasons. We're getting close. So where we're at now, this door frame is a lot smaller. I've already tried getting in and out. This used to be up here. It had to come back here because where the engine is. Surprisingly enough, yes, it's still a two-seat aircraft. So it took a lot of work, and there was some sacrifice. I considered going to a single-seater. The only way to get it to still be a two-seater and have everything I want is I got to completely redesign the off-road suspension I want on it. I was gonna do it. I had it all drawn up on the computer. I had it all worked out just right, but everything started getting tighter and tighter, and everything's a compromise. I've completely redesigned the off-road suspension for the front of this. It's gonna be really cool, but it is different. We'll dive into that later. But I was able now to keep it a two-seater. The shocks were gonna be inside the airframe. I just couldn't get room for my feet to work, going clear out to the engine, and space just ran out. To make the space, I had to move the seat back further, moving the seat back further, move the CG enough that I couldn't get someone in the back seat. Everything is a compromise. All right, guys. So this is where the oil cooler goes. There's actually two of them on this aircraft. One on this side, one on that side. I can't have them on the front of the aircraft in this location anymore. There's two reasons for that. One, the engine's got to come so far back, and no matter how I kept redesigning the front of the airplane, I realized I need to tuck it back so far that the oil cooler is in the way. I literally am going to have bars coming right through this area right here, and I needed that extra 3.5 inches of moving the engine back. That was a big deal. It's a huge motor out of my race plane, and it really isn't made to go into a Cub, so it's going to take a lot of little things. The other reason my oil coolers can't be here, I did a real basic calculation on airflow into the engine to cool the cylinders. And I've done a whole lot of aircraft, a lot of race planes, and I actually consider myself pretty good at airflow. And you can take any given airspeed and you can calculate exactly what maximum compressibility of air is at a given airspeed. And with that number, you know how many inches of air pressure you can build inside of a sealed plenum given a certain opening. So I can calculate the airflow, how many inches of pressure, and then I know what I need just based off experience of this motor. I know how much cooling airflow I need. I can increase the intake on the front to get more cooling, open up the bottom. You got to make sure the intake and the outlet are paired or you're just giving up airspeed. Long story short, I can't keep the engine cold. It's going to overheat like crazy if I have oil coolers that are sucking that volume for this oil cooler and this oil cooler. It doesn't work. I'm going to have an overheated Cub. So two things. Oil coolers are gone. They're going to actually help my weight and balance. They're going to go right behind the passenger seat with two side scoops. That moves my weight back. It helps me get the airflow that used to feed two oil coolers here, now are all going through the cylinders. So this engine used to have an intake about that big. Even taking the 2 oil coolers out, I'm gonna have to go about that big. If I didn't take the oil coolers out, that'd be stupid. Or I'd have cylinders sitting in the 400+ degree range, which is not gonna happen. So that's what I gotta do. Oil coolers gotta move. I gotta cap the back of this, make a new carbon fiber piece, tighten up the plenum, and enlarge the opening. So I got a lot of work to do. I'm gonna get back at it. As always, back to work. All right, so on the front of this plane, this was one of the most challenging parts. This motor mount, normally you would see bolt points here and here that carried a motor mount out away from a firewall and then the motor hooked onto it. This used to be original airframe to here and then a motor mount. We backed all the way back to here. This is permanently part of the airframe. It doesn't unbolt. So that helped me save some weight, some bolts, and gave me a lot stronger airframe. So this is the motor mount, complete, and no bars. So I'm really excited about that. There's still a bit more work to do, but we're gonna bolt an engine on the front of this and see how it fits and see how my feet pass through. Everything should work out real good, so let's put on an engine. All right, I'm working on Scrappy, but I gotta go do an air show, which I love to do. I've done a bunch. This one's to raise money for cancer, so I'm gonna head to Denver, do an air show, and get back to work on Scrappy.
Look up Mike Patey on YouTube. You'll see some great videos. He has designed and built this airplane. He's designed and built more than a dozen airplanes. Of course, with those big tires, he can land in a cattle pasture. Somebody likes Draco back there.
This is awesome. Hey, I'm gonna mount this up right now. I've had several people, they saw this online. I call this a head locker. They were wondering what it was and where to get it. Well, you can't buy them. I just made this myself. This used to have valve covers. They kind of tend to sometimes be a little bit leak prone. That isn't why I spent all the time to make this head locker. This, because it used to be supercharged and I had it really pumped up with a lot of horsepower, when you push engines way beyond their original design limit, the cylinders actually can start to walk a little bit, and all the stress is back at the case. And if you actually take and put a camera and put it on slow motion, which I tried a couple years ago when I did this, you can actually see those cylinders move. And then when you push them, and that's normal, but when you push them over the top, you can actually start cracking the case and creating problems. So this was a way to lock all the cylinders together. So it's more like a conventional engine today. They no longer let cylinders float out in the air like this. They lock them down with a solid aluminum head and valve covers. Everything on it is locked down. So I kind of took modern day technology, made my own part, machined it. These big indents go in and hold the rocker pins and this whole assembly inside here. So it's really complex inside and outside. On the inside of this, I put cooling fins on it, but and then this doesn't have a gasket on it. What I did is I put an O-ring that's embedded into it. So what actually happens is the aluminum of this head locker mates up and actually touches the aluminum of your cylinder head. What that allows to do is it allows the heat to transfer from your cylinder head out into this plate, which has cooling fins on it. And then that also allows the heat from this cylinder to migrate to this cylinder. The purpose of that is to even up the cylinder temperature. So this is strictly was race reasons I designed and built this. It's worked unbelievable. I've never had an oil leak. It's tight as a drum. I'm super happy about it, but I'm only telling you about it not because it's available. I don't make them, but because a lot of people have been asking what was this plate on the side. The other thing I did is I machined in all these contact points, and that's to make a airtight carbon fiber plenum on it, which I am putting on this one. But there's no gaps, no cracks, no places for air to leak. So that's my head locker for all those of you who are wondering. I don't sell it. There are some people talking to me, asking me about maybe introducing it. We'll see. But I've run it, I put it on about 10 people's planes, race planes. They've been running them for several years now. It's been absolutely awesome. So I'm gonna leave it on here. All right, so I've got two airframes set next to each other. I'm gonna show you the differences between one and the other so you can kind of see a stock Carbon Cub, the ultimate Cub, I love Carbon Cub, and then the slightly modified Carbon Cub, Scrappy. I've got my 2 seats in. The 780 is mounted up. I'm super excited about that. But check out this silly thing. This is the prop. So let's talk about this prop. Let me first show you a standard prop that would go on an engine like this. This is the race prop that was on this engine when it was supercharged going after world records. It holds 3 aviation records, 500, 1,000, 2,000 kilometer close course records, and transcontinental world speed record, fastest flight from coast to coast, San Diego to Jacksonville, Florida. This is the prop that did that, this whirlwind propeller. So here's the difference. This prop is awesome, it's built for speed. But if you actually stop at a dead stop and were to throw all the horsepower that this 780 can put out, this prop will cavitate. The blades will actually work their way up. I put it on a static thrust meter I have. I chained the plane down, I took the plane up, and I have to see how much static thrust I can make. When you approach 1,000 pounds of static thrust, you can give more power and you don't get a linear curve because the blade starts to cavitate. You can actually, if you pump it really hard, you can actually lose thrust because the prop cavitates so much. That's fine for a high-speed prop or any prop of any airplane. There's a reason they all look like this and not like this. This is an airboat prop, and I'll tell you why. We're gonna give it a shot. But this one, as soon as you get rolling down the runway and you've got clean air racing into those blades, you're now cutting clean air while moving forward. So you're moving the direction that the blade needs to be, pushing air back, and you don't cavitate. So once you get moving, this is perfect. It's high speed. This prop is great for something different. It's great for 0 to 60. It is great to actually be at a dead stop, roll all the power up to it, and go. The reason why airboats use it is they have sometimes 8, 10, 15 passenger airboats, a big aluminum hull sitting on the grass or dirt, and they need that thing to be able to start moving. This blade wouldn't move that boat. It doesn't have enough bite, it's gonna cavitate, it can't grab the horsepower at a stop position. However, Scrappy, I don't care about 350 miles an hour. I care about 0 to 60. So there's a problem that happens if you get all that power at once. The plane wants to roll itself off the runway. It turns hard left, you gotta pedal hard right, hold the brake. That's gonna screw up my ground roll. So what's great about an airboat prop is I got a smaller diameter. That takes the leverage arm moment out of the propeller, reduces it. Doesn't get rid of all the P factor by any means. It's just helping. So I'm using a smaller diameter prop, a much bigger paddle, and I'm gonna super exaggerate to kind of give you an understanding of how much that helps. If I have a long prop, that leverage really can turn it. If you go super small, let's say like a jet engine, I'm going hyper the other direction, you shrink those blades up smaller and smaller, you just get a needle blast, and that has almost no rotational forces on the aircraft. So small diameter, big blades so it doesn't cavitate. Now, big blades aren't used on aircraft because they're horribly inefficient at high speeds. But I don't care. This isn't about speed. It's about 0 to 60. So I'm going to show you a quick clip. Watch this, and you can see what an airboat can do from 0 to 60. It is insane. Woo! That is like a drag car hooked up on big, meaty, hot slicks on a hot tarmac runway. Gone. That's what I want this plane to do. So I'm strengthening the whole tail, taking the twist out of the tail. I'm putting a larger rudder, larger elevator. There's a lot I got to do. A smaller diameter prop, big fat prop. So the other thing that's different is this is a constant speed propeller designed to continually adjust. For all the aircraft guys, they already know this, but it adjusts with speed. This is fixed pitch. So you can see all this silly math I got driven all over here. These are different pitch settings and what speeds I'll be able to do. 13.71 give me 110 miles an hour, 19.8 give me 170 miles an hour. So I can adjust on the ground this pitch. So someone brought up some great comments. I'm going to talk about it right now. How in the world are you going to carry enough fuel to feed an engine that can pull down 40 gallons an hour? 50 gallons an hour is actually, it'll go as high as 52 gallons an hour. It's simple. I can't do full power for more than seconds, literally seconds. Otherwise, I'd either over rev the prop, or if I repitched it, I'd rip the wings off the airplane. So what's great is this is about getting 0 to 60 right now, or if I'm coming up on chasing the mountain bases I like to do, and then I have a wall I want to go up, I can pitch and stand it on its tail and climb like crazy. So that's what this is for. But the difference is I have the ability to go to 50 gallons an hour when I want it. But an aircraft like a Carbon Cub takes a specific horsepower to do a specific speed. It doesn't know if it's 2 cylinders, 3, 4, or 8. It takes, let's say, 100 horsepower to do 100 miles an hour. I'm going to use rough numbers. It's actually not quite that much. But if I take this 8-cylinder and I pull it down from 500 horse to 100 horsepower, there is an exact fuel specific that is this much gallons per hour produces this much horsepower. It doesn't know if it's 8 cylinders, 4, or 6. So, other than rotational mass, frictional drag of the additional cylinders, they will pair up. So, if I'm flying with my friends and they're out burning 10 gallons an hour and they're pushing roughly 13 horsepower for every gallon per hour of fuel flow. So if they're burning 10 gallons an hour, they're flying their Carbon Cub at roughly 130 horsepower setting. If I take this plane and put it to 130 horsepower, all 8 of my cylinders are consuming half the fuel per cylinder, but more cylinders, equaling the same 130 horsepower on 10 gallons an hour, with exception of the rotational mass. So I am going to take a fuel penalty of an extra 5 to 10% on the high side. I'm going to burn another gallon an hour at a given airspeed. So I'm willing to sacrifice that little bit. So for those of you who asked how in the world you're going to carry enough fuel for this, just like everybody else, but I'm going to put 2 tanks per wing, a tank in the back, and give this thing really, really long range. And I'm going to fly around with every other Cub out there because that's who I want to play with. So I hope that helps. This is the prop. I hope it works out. I think it is, but it's going to be crazy out of the hole. So let's get back to work. All right, guys, so here's a quick little teeny trick. Took a Carbon Cub seat, drilled it out. Don't drill out the area in here. You're going to cause problems. I'm not even saying you should drill it out at all, but I knocked off a couple pounds on this seat. It is so light now. And the only thing that sucks is you get really itchy. Fortunately, I had a friend, Josh, came by and picked up the drill and started doing it. And I wasn't going to turn him down. So it was great to have some help. One little trick. This is Scrappy's seat. Let's get back to work. All right, now I've got this all remade, new shape for the new door. This is no longer going to be a split door. I'm going to go and hinge it from the top, make a heated and bent piece of glass we'll put in here later, and this will open all the way up. So I will have unobstructed view. So from sitting from my seat, I will see the tires perfectly through this part of the glass instead of painted here and then window. I'm doing the same thing on the other side. The only bar that will obstruct the window that goes from there to there is this bar that's holding my controls. So that's going to stay there, but the view out of this is going to be awesome. All right, guys, so I've got a Carbon Cub frame here. This is Mark's. He's building. It's going to be ambush. So this is going to be a 6-cylinder, 320 horsepower monster. He hasn't started on it yet, but he's going to start right away, right, Mark? Anyway, I put this here so you can see the difference where Scrappy's engine is in relation to an original airframe. You can see I've lined these two up perfectly. And this is the front of the plane, the extension, the motor mount. If you line this up, my front of my motor is where the back of a 4-cylinder goes, even though it's an 8-cylinder. So what's really funny is I had people online say, oh my gosh, that's gonna be a really silly looking Cub with that big long nose on the front. Well, if it had a big long nose on the front, I didn't know what I was doing, and the plane would tip over and it wouldn't fly, at least not safe. I want it to look like a Carbon Cub, it just might not sound much like a Carbon Cub. The cowling's got to come back to here for everything to work. And then I'm going to make the cowling come and make the seam here, and I won't have the big long boot cowl. And then I'll try and blend that color back further, because this used to be up here, now it's back here. The actual distance of painted area is within just a couple inches. I'm playing tricks with how I'm doing the body work, trying to make it look as authentic to a Carbon Cub as possible. All right, so my wife and I are ready to go fly. I got Chandra, my co-pilot, best, sexiest co-pilot ever, in the back. So this is it. We still got 780 cubic inches up front, a big wide door, lots of visibility. But look where my feet have to be. My feet actually pass through the firewall area, and the pedals, when I push the brakes, will be right here. And the alternator is actually inside. So my firewall is indented for my feet, the pedals, and I got a ton of room. I got big old fat, old school moon boots on if I wanted and still fly this thing. So I got lots of room for my feet. Then the firewall is gonna come out and around the front of all these accessories. So what's really cool is if I ever need to replace an alternator, this will just come right off the face, and I can work on it right here. I can actually change the accessories on the back of my engine easier in this plane than trying to squeeze between this area on another plane. So I'm pretty excited about that. I love this visibility out the front. You can see right here where I was showing you how I had to get rid of the oil cooler. There was no room. So that's the space where the oil cooler would have been. It's now going right back there with 2 air scoops to fix the air problem. So, man, I'm pumped. I'm ready to go fly. So let's see if we can start this thing up. Let's get back to work. All right, guys. I've got so much work to do. I hope you like what we've got so far. I've been so busy. I've been traveling all over the place, different events, different air shows, so I haven't had a lot of time to work on Scrappy. I hope to have a lot more, get a lot more done. I hope you like the craziness that is the 780 is now mounted onto Scrappy. We got the propeller picked out, and during these changes, you can see over here, I've had to start all over, probably what will be in the next video. We're gonna show you how I'm redoing the suspension that is the crazy off-road suspension I want Scrappy to have and the insane amount of travel I want it to have. And I hope that's the next video. I hope you come, follow, like, subscribe. If you know anyone who's into drag racing, airboats, airplanes, silly fabrication, I hope you send them my way. Let's get back to it.